Today I'll be showing you how I'm going to restore this refractor telescope. It's a Skywatcher on an EQ1 mount, and it's also a 70mm aperture. As to the condition of the telescope, the main thing I look for is the primary lens is in really good condition. There is a bit of dust on there is a bit of dust on the various layers, so I will be taking those lenses off and cleaning. Most other parts seem to be working. However, there is a lot of rust and dust. Looks like it's been left outside for a while. The mount is in okay condition. Just needs just a little bit. It's just a little bit stiff on both right ascension and declination axis. There is a control cable which is missing, which means we'll have to build one from scratch. The tripod is in okay condition. There's not a lot of rust, just a lot of dust. Just needs to be cleaned up. The telescope comes with 3 eyepieces. There's a 25mm eyepiece here, 10 and a 5mm. They're all here, just need to be given a clean. Yeah. Just a bit of a close-up of the optical tube assembly. There's the nice aperture there. Finder scope is in good condition as well. Diagonal's fine, focuser works. Just needs a really good clean, and then we'll be good to go. So to start with the restoration plan, I'll be taking apart the optical tube assembly and starting with that. Then I'll move my way down through the mount into the tripod. Then I'll put it all back together. So there's the optical tube assembly taken apart. I'm going to give the tube a really good clean. It's just got a little bit of dust on it. The focuser mechanism is actually in not bad condition, just needs a bit of a clean. The diagonal mirror is fine. Most of the other components just need a bit of a clean. And there is the lens nacelle there. What we'll do is we'll take that ring off and we'll remove both the lenses and we'll give them a good clean. And I'll take you through that later on. Otherwise, overall, it's not in bad condition. Anything that's plastic will be washed, of course. Anything that's iron or metal will receive a very thin layer of WD-40, one to remove any rust and to protect it from any further corrosion. The lens nacelle, here's a bit that gets assembled to the actual tube, and this bit collects light from this side here. So there's a little ring here which actually secures the lenses in place. I'm going to slowly loosen it, and as I loosen it, I'm going to tip it over so that when I remove the lenses, they'll be stacked on top of each other. Just be very gentle and slow with this, okay? Just take your time, because there's actually two lenses here stacked on top of each other. So I've actually marked out the front lens. There's a part that actually faces the object that you're observing, and there's a part that sits inside the tube. So I've marked this bit with just a symbol of a star, and then numbered the lenses 1 and 2. And I've also drawn some alignment markers, that way when I put it back together, I'll have them as aligned up as they were in the actual cell nacelle. And what I'll do now is I'll actually separate them and then give it a good wash. And I'll just separate them now, and they're actually not glued together, they're actually separated by a very thin aluminium foil. And so what I'll do is I'll put both of these under water, under running water, and then we'll slowly clean each one of them individually. Now, as you saw, I ran them underwater for a while. At this stage, there should be very little in terms of debris or dust stuck on it. And we've just put them on, a dry towel, and with just a microfiber cloth, just go over it a few times, make sure we just dry out all the, very gently applying, very little pressure there. And that's the top lens, and we'll just do the bottom lens as well. Now if you have stubborn stains, you can use a little bit of cotton wool with a mixture of water, a bit of detergent, and a little bit of alcohol, or isopropyl alcohol, to help with the stubborn stains. Otherwise here, as far as I'm concerned, they look pretty clear. No scratches, nothing at all. I'll just give that a chance to dry. In the meantime, I've cleaned up the lens nacelle. So all we've got to do is just put the lenses back in. And I've just put the lenses back as they were in the same arrangement. There's my alignment markers there. And noting that this ring, this part will be facing the object, so I'll be placing it upside down. I'll put the lenses on it very slowly. Now the nacelle has been cleaned and dried, and slowly place it on top, and then lift the base and slowly rotate the top till you have a. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the mount from the tripod. So first I'll start with the counterweights. Not in bad condition. There's a little bit of rust here on the counterweight shaft. The worm gear is a little bit dirty, a little bit of rust, and some rust on the control knob, some rust on the screws, and a little bit on the bolts. So I'll just be taking it all apart and just giving it a good clean. And there's all the parts are laid out. I'm going to need to remove this as well and just clear the rust of it. Most of the parts are rust free. There's a little bit of rust on the counterweight shaft and a few of the bolts there. So I'll just give it a really good clean of WD-40 and then put it back together. For now, the right Ascension axis is a little bit stiff. The declination axis is a little bit stiff as well. So I'll just put some WD-40 in the seams just to enable a smoother transition. Just enable a smoother motion. So the mount is ready to go. I've applied WD-40 on both the right Ascension and the declination axis. Both actually moving very smoothly. The control column for both right Ascension and declination have all been re-greased. All the rust has been removed. I've got to do a little bit more work on the counterweight shaft. There's a little bit of rust there, so I'm just going to scrape it off there. And then this will be ready to be reassembled to the tripod. So the telescope is complete. One thing I did mention earlier on was the fact that it was missing a right Ascension control cable. So I made this. I used an old hub from a robotics project, and one side is actually happens to be 5mm in diameter, which is just right for the shaft, and the other side was 8mm. So I got a piece of dowel and placed it inside the 8mm hole, and then I tightened it with the hex nuts. Now what I'll do is, from here I'll just place the 5mm diameter hole on the other side of the shaft and then slowly tighten that up. And once that's tightened, you can see that I can now rotate it, and the next step from here will be to put a small wheel, just a wooden wheel, and glue it on. That way we can control it from a distance. But now at least you can see how you can make a very easy control cable using just parts found around the house. Okay, so the right Ascension control handle has been painted. There it is in operation right there. And I've also painted it with a layer of lacquer to protect it from the moisture if it stays for too long outside. Something else I've also noticed is that the finder scope is actually missing a reticle. So if I just flip that around there, there you go. There's no crosshairs inside. As it turns out, the reason why there's no crosshairs is because at the edge of the eyepiece, the two very thin wires are missing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some very thin wires, glue them on, let it dry, and then put the eyepiece back into the finder scope. Alright, so I've got the eyepiece here, and I've just cut out some wire from some speaker wire. I'll be using the individual very thin wires as crosshairs. So gluing them onto the eyepiece is a very sensitive procedure, so should take your time with it. Start with applying just one drop of glue onto one of the edges there, and then grab one strand, and then try and keep it as straight as possible, and you just rest it there on the drop of glue you just applied. Just let that dry. And one drop of glue, 90 degrees off, and you get the second wire. And we'll just put it at 90 degrees to it. You just rest it there. And we'll just give that a few minutes to dry, and then we'll apply glue on the other side, apply a little bit of tension towards the wires to make them as straight as possible. That way the crosshairs look straight when looking through them. So now we just apply glue on the other side of one of the crosshairs, and then we'll apply a bit of tension, pull that wire down. We'll just give it a few minutes for it to dry, and we'll just apply glue on the other side of the other crosshair there. Careful not to get the drops inside the eyepiece, and just pull it down there. just bend those wires down. What we'll do is, we'll just leave it there to dry. Once they're dried, we'll just clip off the excess wires and just wait just a couple of hours before we put it back into the finderscope. If you have a little excess glue you want to get rid of without touching it, then just use a very thin piece of tissue and that'll absorb any excess super glue. So in this case, the way the finderscope crosshairs works is that where these two wires sit is the actual focal point of both the eyepiece and the objective lens of the finderscope. That way, when you're looking through it, these appear to be in focus. At this stage, I'm happy the glue's dried enough for me to snip off the excess wire. You can use thicker wire if you want, but the thinner the better. That way it doesn't obstruct the view of what you're looking at. And what we'll do is we'll just give it an hour or so and put it back into the finderscope. The telescope is now complete. The finderscope has been repaired and the control knob has been completed for the right Ascension axis. The rest of the tripod was given a quick clean. There was no major issues there. And the telescope is now ready to go to a new home. And once again, thanks for tuning into my channel, just to show you that with a little bit of perseverance and discipline, you could easily turn something into a really good, decent instrument.